Let's go ahead and get started. I've got 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time on my end. And so I want to welcome everyone to our quarterly webinar. My name is Tyrone Squires. I'm Managing Director of Transparent RX. And do we have some heat for you today? A lot of stuff happening around the PBM industry. And we're going to give you the information so that you can make better sense of what's happening in the industry today. Real quick, a little bit about my background, and then I'm going to let Day share a little bit about himself. Uh, but I've been in the pharmaceutical industry and have done nothing but pharmacy for 2 decades. First, starting out as a drug sales rep with Eli Lilly. So I learned a lot about the challenges that patients have in getting access to drugs and the challenges that doctors have in dealing with PBM formularies. I've been in that waiting room more times than I can count to hear those and feel those stories. I eventually worked myself into the corporate offices where I led a market access team where we were charged with getting our branded products onto the PBM's formulary. I've owned the mail order pharmacy, and today I'm the founder of the first fiduciary model PBM, and it's in my best interest to share with you what I know. We essentially bust open that black box today for you. So I'm going to let Day introduce himself and give you a little bit of information about his background.
All right, thanks, Tyrone. Hi, everybody. My name is Day Lee. I'm one of the pharmacist attorneys at Fryer Levitt. I represent, various stakeholders in the pharmacy industry, including pharmacies, pharmacists, dispensing physicians, and other manufacturers or wholesalers. I also co-chair the firm's plan sponsor practice group, which is highly relevant to today's webinar. And, as part of as part of the co-chair, as part of the group, we negotiate contracts, identify any issues stemming from the plan sponsor PBM agreement, including rebates, and we recover rebates as well as any additional savings on behalf of the plan sponsor. And I'm really happy that you guys are joining today, and I'm happy to share my knowledge today along with Tyrone. Thank you.
And Day is actually being a little bit modest here. He was just named a partner at his law firm, Fryer Levitt Attorneys at Law. So congratulations to you, my friend. Well deserved. In the news, the FTC launches inquiry into pharmacy benefit managers. Johnson and Johnson sues one of the larger PBMs that participated in the Save on SP uh, uh, program around the copay accumulator and copay maximizer programs. The state of Ohio sued, and we're going to talk about that. Two of the three largest PBMs in the country uh, over spread pricing. This to me signals as close to you can game over for opacity in the pharmacy benefits management industry, at least from a public payer standpoint. I'm not sure if that olive branch is going to be extended to commercial plan sponsors. So the focus today is around the problem. And price is always a concern for self-funded employers. Our spin on addressing that pricing problem that the state of Ohio experienced with its PBMs isn't necessarily about just getting bigger discounts or bigger minimum rebate guarantees. It is eliminating information asymmetry, or in other words, information failure. Information asymmetry is just simply this: when one party has access to information that another party doesn't have access to, the party with the information the party with the skill set to interpret that information leverages it to its financial advantage. That is what PBMs have been doing now for almost 2 decades, making it difficult for you or your clients to calculate how much money they're actually making. Forget about the drug costs. That's one issue. The bigger issue is how much money are the PBMs putting in their bank accounts for the services that they're providing to their clients. I'm going to dig deeper in that here in a second. So that leads me to the status quo. Because of information failure, plan sponsors typically enter into an agreement with a non-fiduciary pharmacy benefit manager that calls for an artificially too low PBM administrative fee. Of all the fees, the primary fees that a PBM earns, the administrative fee is transparent, radically so. It is either a per employee per month fee, a per member per month fee, or it's a per paid claim fee. That we can easily audit. What PBMs love is when their clients accept no fee for the administrative portion of their service, or an artificially too low fee, something below $6 per paid claim. You can factor it out to, like I said, a PPM or PMPM, but you have to be careful. Just because a PBM says we're going to charge you $7 per paid claim, or we're going to charge you $9 per employee per month, does not mean that they are not going to augment. Still doesn't mean they're not going to augment that fee in the back end. Some PBMs are double dipping on a high admin fee and then also capturing additional funds through these three buckets here. But a dead giveaway, a red flag, is if that admin fee is free, or $1 per paid claim, $2 per employee per month. How can you keep the lights on with with such a low administrative fee? You can't. That's why they augment it through those three buckets here. A spread. Let me really quickly tell you how a spread happens. It's not a billing error, it is intentional. It is when the PBM bills its client an amount higher than what it actually reimburses to the pharmacy. That difference is a spread. And as you saw in the previous slide, it is how a PBM can augment its artificially too low administrative fee. Case in point, state of Ohio, very, very smart people, unlimited resources. Not until around 2017, 2018 did they pivot in how they evaluated their PBM's performance or a PBM's proposal. That pivot was we're no longer going to focus on the discounts that you're offering off of AWP. We're not going to even focus on the ASP or the average sales price plus a percent above that, say 6%. We are going to focus on and key in on how much money at the end of the year are you making. When they pivoted and calculated the numbers, in 1 year, the state of Ohio paid out to Optum and CVS Health almost $250 million just in spreads. They hadn't even looked at rebates yet. Now, if Greg were here today, to a man, to a woman, he would tell you it's not necessarily information we've never had before. More importantly, it's information they never demanded before. It's information they never considered to evaluate before. That's the sea change that we're seeing today. So, in talking about rebates, the one thing I want to talk about here, the Forbes magazine a couple weeks ago wrote an article about how PBMs are intentionally not allowing low cost generic drugs to be dispensed. and they refer to it as a rebate wall. Biosimilar drugs, leaving the reference product on the formulary instead of a generic specialty drug being put on the formulary because they want to capture the rebate dollars. A clear indication that a PBM is taking advantage of rebate walls is if your generic dispense rate or your client's generic dispense rate is substantially lower than 90%, meaning 9 out of every 10 drugs that are dispensed are generic. And by substantially, I'm not talking 20% or 30%. Substantial in this instance is anything above a 5% difference. So if the generic dispense rate is 80, 81, 82, you have a major problem. And this is how it flows. And I'm just telling you, I've been on each side of this. It starts out with the pharmaceutical, and this is driven by PBMs. Manufacturers would rather not have to pay rebates. It is PBMs driving rebates. And for the record, I don't necessarily believe that rebates are bad. It's the manipulation of rebates. It's the manipulation of AWP that is bad. It's those deceptive practices that PBMs leverage to increase their clients' costs and pad their pockets that is bad. If I go to Best Buy and there's $100 rebate offered on a television, there's two similar televisions. One offers a rebate of $100 and the other one does not. Just two different manufacturers. Is really the only difference between the televisions. One offers a $100 rebate and the other one doesn't. Of course, I'd like to have that rebate at the point of sale. Who wouldn't? But if I have to wait and get it through the mail, cool. Just send $100. Don't siphon off any along the way. PBMs are driving the rebates. It starts off at the negotiating table. This is what the pharmaceutical manufacturers are going to cut a check for. After they cut that check, it turns out that PBMs are keeping this part and only paying this part. For every 1%, and listen, I'm big on PBM metrics, GDR, GSR, generic dispense rate, generic substitution rate. These are clinical programs. You talk about how prior authorizations are managed. Is the step therapy program working? Is therapeutic substitution working? You measure that by the generic dispense rate, generic substitution rate. It tells you for every 1% increase in generic dispense rate, this is fact, it's not fiction. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. There's research on it. For every 1% increase in generic dispense rate, there's a 2.5% reduction in gross cost. That is massive. That is massive. So imagine, because what's happening is now you're getting rid of the high cost uh, uh, brand drugs and instead dispensing the low cost generics or lower cost therapeutic alternatives. This all happens in the benefit design. This all happens in the benefit design. Are you going to employ mandatory generic enforcement programs? Or are you just basically going to leave it wide open? For example, DAW codes, dispensers written codes. Who controls those codes that allows a benefit design to be overwritten in the back end because of these codes? Rebate considerations. Uh, does the employer even have access to the right information to make these decisions? In our certified pharmacy benefit specialist class, it never fails. A broker at a very successful and national firms will say the only information our clients receive around rebates is the channel, retail 30, retail 90, mail, specialty, and then a bucket of dollars being paid by the PBM in rebates for each of these channels. The piece that is missing is the claim level detail. This is that's information asymmetry. That's information failure when that receipt is not provided in conjunction with the rebate payments. It's not an oversight, it's not a mistake, it is intentional because with this sort of information, now you can start to calculate net cost. Non-fiduciary PBMs don't want you to be able to calculate net cost. It infringes on their profits. This is an example of a remittance report that all of our clients receive when we receive rebate payments from rebate aggregators. You know what an aggregator is. They will do a really good job explaining to you what a rebate aggregator is and what they do. But the information here we've removed for privacy reasons, but it is also populated. And this is an actual report. This is an actual report. Just think how powerful this is and the questions you could ask around this report. Before I turn it over today, and listen, if we, as a fiduciary PBM, we can't play these sorts of games. I just shared with you an example of a remittance report from one of our clients. That's why I'm not sharing with you this information because we don't have it. Because we don't relabel rebate dollars. But Express Scripts does. Remember the flow, how it starts when the PBMs and the manufacturers are sitting at the table. It starts with data fees and formulary rebates, and there's all sorts of types of names for rebate dollars. But in this example, Express Scripts sued a specialty drug manufacturer because that manufacturer refused to pay the rebates. And I believe that Kaleo owed Express Scripts these rebates. This is public information, by the way. I believe that they owed these rebates, but didn't think Express Scripts would file a lawsuit because that information would become public, and Express Scripts did it. And what we learned was that the formulary rebate was being dwarfed by the manufacturer administrative fee. That fee is different, folks, completely than the administrative fee I talked about in the very beginning. That administrative fee I talked about in the very beginning, that when it's artificially too low, the PBMs can augment it and make money through spreads from mail and retail, then also from the rebate spreads from the manufacturer. This administrative fee is a manufacturer administrative fee. It comes from the same bucket of dollars as the formulary rebates. There's a finite amount of money that manufacturers are going to pay. And then the PBM say, okay, you're going to pay 100 million in rebates. We want to put 5 million here. We want to put 20 million here in this bucket. And then we want to put 25 million in this bucket. That gives you 50. And then we want to put another 50 in this bucket. And then based upon the level of sophistication of our clients, if they don't address this in the contract, then we get to keep that part that wasn't addressed in the contract language.
All right, folks. So what you're seeing is the vertical integration from plan sponsor down to the PBM owned pharmacies. As you can see, major PBMs, Caremark, ESI, Optum owns rebate aggregators. I'm not saying that the vertical integration in and of itself is wrong. I'm not saying that rebate aggregators are bad for the pharmacy industry. Okay. What is wrong is that the opaqueness, opacity from this vertical integration that is hurting the plan sponsor, the drug waste that is coming from the vertical integration that is wrong in the current pharmacy industry. And also, um, more specifically, like these three major PBMs, as I said, they have rebate aggregator, Ascent Health Services, with ESI, and of note, Ascent Health is located in Switzerland. Mr. Pharma Services and Coalition for Advanced Pharma Services with Optum, and of note, Mr. is located in Ireland, and Caremark recently launched a Zinc Health Services, and these rebate aggregator, they also provide services to other PBMs. Okay, so not only the vertical integration exists, there's horizontal integration exists. Okay, and fortunately, there have been a series of actions against PBMs, as you can see, Ohio, Florida, um, Lehigh County, Broward County, they all came out with audit reports revealing not only the spread, but also lost savings in rebates. So that's something that is some positive movement in the industry, but we have a long way to go. Okay. And on that note, I just want to point out a couple things. I'm sure you guys heard of the Centene settlement. Ohio pursued an action against Centene. They settled for $88 million on the spread. Mississippi as well against Centene for $55 million. And Centene Corporation, which is the biggest MCOs for the Medicaid space, they reserved 1.1 billion for future state settlement. Okay. And and the last two bullet points there is for Broward County and a file and our firm's rebate settlement. But let me just give you a brief rundown of what happened in Broward County. So Broward County is a county in Florida. They contracted with Optum to conduct, to have Optum serve as a PBM. What Optum did was Optum, unbeknownst to the county, subcontracted its rebate function to its own rebate aggregator, Coalition for Advanced Pharmacy Service, which then subcontracted its rebate function to Express Script. Okay, if the county knew about it, if it was included in the contract, that's fine. That's negotiated. That's in the contract. But the fact that it was not in the contract, and the fact that Optum did not report the rebates collected by its own rebate aggregator and Express Script, Optum had to pay back the money. And one of our clients, Medicare Part D space sponsor, we uncovered rebate aggregator retained rebates in the sum of $6.25 million. So what is so in your contract, in your plan sponsor PBN contract, I'm sure it says rebates are passed through, but is it really passed through? I'm sure it probably says rebates retained by the PBM will be 100% passed through. Okay. but retained by PBM. Okay, it doesn't say retain the PBM is inclusive of the rebate aggregators or the subcontractors or any other third parties. What you need to watch out is who are you contracting with? Who are the subcontractors? Okay, what is the definition of rebate? What is rebate? Okay, because the rebate, aka gross to net bubble, defined by created by Adam Feed. The gross net bubble has been going up ever since. I believe in 2021, the gross net bubble reached 200 billion. Okay, where is the rebates going to the plan sponsors? I'm sure some went to plan sponsor, but not the majority, not the 100% pass through. Okay, again, like this slide is about the Broward County. We could skip this, but it shows the flow of money of rebates from county to the rebate aggregator. Now, again, every major PBM, those top three PBM that dominates the current pharmacy benefit industry space, owns rebate aggregators. Okay, they own rebate aggregators, and it's quite hard to not have rebate aggregators, negotiate rebates in the current, in this day and age. Okay, so I just want the plan sponsors to know that and make sure you put some sort of clause in the contract that shows what you're getting, what the rebate aggregator is getting, what are their fees, okay, and when you're getting rebates, what is the definition of rebate? Like you need to know what the definition, what you need to know what the rebate is. Okay, you can't really get full value of rebate unless you fully negotiate the contract. Okay, and the same thing for administrative fees. Okay, let's say administrative fees, is all the administrative fees are based off of assumption that the administrative fees are bona fide administrative fee services or services administrative fees. Okay, now what if there are other fees that are paid by manufacturer to the PBM to the rebate aggregator? For example, data fee, is that part of the administrative fee? I don't think so. Are you getting? Is that being reported to you? Do you know how much of the data fees that the manufacturers are paying the rebate aggregators? You probably wouldn't know, but you need to know that, okay? Because that may impact the value of rebates that you're receiving from the manufacturer on the drugs that you pay as a plan sponsor. You need to have better contract terms to protect your rights, to reserve your rights. Okay, and one of which is audit right, which is very, very important. Like I've reviewed hundreds, even thousands of plan sponsor contracts. Okay, almost always the audit right provision or audit provision is very, very limited. Okay, there's got to be a mutual agreement of the auditor. The auditor must sign the confidentiality agreement. The auditor cannot support the litigation function of the plan sponsor against the PBM. And auditor cannot take notes in the bizarre instances. Auditor cannot share the notes with the plan sponsor. And all these plan sponsors are just agreeing to it because they're not paying attention to those critical terms. So you need to have broader audit rights provision in your contract so that you know what you're getting into. You know what your PBM and the subcontractors are doing. Okay, you have to monitor their performance, but where do they all start? It starts with the contract. Okay, so the contract terms are very, very important. Now, how do you get the contract? I'm sure you're gonna run an RFP or work with a consultant who's gonna recommend certain PBMs. But don't delegate that to those consultants. Don't delegate to the PBM to control the contract terms. You need to be in the driver's seat, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's contractual relationship. You're going to be bound by the terms. PBM is going to be bound by the terms that both parties negotiate and put it in writing.
All right. And so, you know, the one of the most frustrating things for me in this business is having plan sponsors. I asked the question, when you're evaluating or you're in an RFP and you're evaluating potential PBMs to be your vendor of choice, your vendor of record, what's the most important thing that you look at? What's the most important thing you evaluate? Without fail, claims repricing. Without fail, the answer is claims repricing. If that were the key to transparency, not just transparency, but radical transparency, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now with the FTC being involved. If that actually worked, if that actually worked, the state of Ohio wouldn't have paid $250 million in spreads. Whenever a PBM is called to account for its opacity and its lack of cost containment activities on behalf of its client, the very first word out of their mouth is contract. It is contract. The contract sets the foundation for all of the financials, not a claims repricing that doesn't bind the PBM to jack. I read something this week, and it's one of the first times I've seen it, and I don't know, I don't remember the name of the article. It might have been a blog post from Benefits Pro or something like that. No, it was your about the New York Transit Authority, and it talked about how after the plan went live is when the arbitrage started to take place. After the plan went live, the PBM became active in protecting its margins and growing its revenue after the plan went live. What we're trying to get at here today, we're making pretty good time, Day. What we're trying to get at here today is how much money is the PBM earning? That's the focus here. Because think about this for a second. We negotiate with pharmacies and chains and independents. We go and we negotiate with manufacturers. Those savings that we negotiate are set in stone. They are set in stone. What you're really negotiating for in the contract language is what you're going to allow the PBM to keep of those negotiated discounts. What the PBM keeps can be accounted for using this formula. Now, you got to have the information to come up with the number. I'm going back to again information asymmetry or information symmetry. When you have information symmetry, you can calculate this number. Everything in green lands in the PBM's bank account. And you could even change this here to DIR fees, direct indirect remuneration, and include dispensing fees here in the ingredient costs. Everything in green lands in the PBM's bank account. An example of a cash disbursement out of the PBM's bank account would be what? A share of rebate dollars, a share of manufacturer revenue that the PBM passes on to its clients. In our examples, that's usually the formulary rebate, whether the plan sponsor knows it or not. It's usually the formulary rebate. The PBM is keeping everything else. Another example of a cash disbursement that we talked about today would be a reimbursement to a pharmacy that dispensed a prescription to a plan participant. When that reimbursement amount to the pharmacy is lower than the amount the PBM bills to its clients in the form of ingredient costs, the PBM keeps that money in its bank account. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. The PBMs don't want you to know what they're keeping in their bank account, because what you will learn may cause you to cancel the contracts just like the state of Ohio did. But when you are unaware of the amount, the deception can continue. The new path says this: PBMs make money one way, the administrative fee, because it's radically transparent. And they're contractually forbidden from making money any other way. There is no higher standard of care than fiduciary. When it's truly fiduciary, there is no higher standard of care. Listen, I don't know. I'm still learning what motivates plan sponsors. But I would want, if I'm paying out millions upon millions of dollars, I would want that entity acting on my behalf not to be a bad actor. At a minimum, this is not even up for debate. In 2022 going forward, the PBM must be required at a minimum to provide radical transparency. That means that if the PBM is going to make money from the manufacturer in the form of rebates, if the PBM is going to make money from spreads, whether it be through mail or retail, it's got to disclose, it's got to provide the information that allows its clients to calculate how much that actually is, so that they can say, this is fair or this is unfair. And even more importantly, to be able to do a fair side by side comparison of two PBMs to see who has the better deal. When the PBM behaves in a deceptive fashion, it's more difficult to see that picture. Real quick, and we're going to be wrapping up here. Client of ours, and same. Here, this is the broker for that client. He says 58%. We say 60.1. Okay, okay. But the point is that Prime Therapeutics dwarfs us. They were charging $57.88 per member per month. When we took over the business, in the first year, we lowered that to $23.12 per member per month. That's all in, folks. That's our fees. It's rebates baked in. It's all in. That is a $35 PM difference. Earnings after cash disbursements. Prime Therapeutics was keeping more for itself than the drugs cost. Its fee for being the PBM was higher than what the drugs cost. If 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 Prime was truly passed through, it gets better deals from pharmacy networks than we do. It gets better rebates from manufacturers than we do. If it were truly passed through, its PM should be at least $17 per member per month. They would go out of business. They would go out of business. That's our time today. We might have one question that has come in. That conclusion was a little anticlimactic, huh? I thought I had another slide coming up. I usually end the presentation a little bit better than that, but you get the point. We gave a lot of information. Let me see here. Uh, okay. All right. uh, that's our time today. You'll get a recording of this webinar sometime tomorrow morning. I'll stick around just in case any questions come through. And our contact information is here. Uh, Reach out to us at any time. You're part of the family that's pushing for radical transparency. Thanks for your time.